Good morning, everyone on Instagram, YouTube, Tumblr, TikTok, you name the socials. We are here today to be able to build a new rig. We've got the first one for those people who are watching that first video. That is the finished build of the 123070 rig, pulling about 758 mega hashes, just under 1500 watts. This one was a custom build that I wanted to do to fit into my power grid. So my solar array was pushing somewhere about that 9.8 kilowatt hours. So the house was only running somewhere between 3 to 4. So I actually had a little bit of spare power that I could use. So I figured out that we can probably work on some about 3 or 4 kilowatts on these units, which equated to about 1500 watts on power before we actually draw from the grid. So this rig in its entirety is working directly off my solar array. So everything that I mine off this one will actually be pure profit. And currently right now we are somewhere around, what are we sitting at? There you go. So 753 mega hashes. All cards running 62.72 mega hashes each card. And we're sitting at 1440 kilowatts. So the wattage on that is actually quite good. Temperatures, as you can see, are super low, and the rig itself isn't actually doing too much. Now, a lot of people are actually asking in the last build how noisy is the actual rig, and what you can hear right now is the rig on its own. So they're pretty quiet. Now keep in mind there is a lot of fans, so when you start running a much heavier algorithm, they do obviously start heating up, and therefore the fans will start running. So they're currently sitting somewhere around about 50-60% on the fans. So not high very much. But it's in here, it's in the garage. You don't really hear it very often. The heat coming off it is pretty low. We've got all the fans running obviously into the back. Then we obviously got all of the fans on the card itself. As you can see, the power supplies aren't even running at all. So pretty efficient machine here. And all she does is just sit there and mine all day, every day, 24/7. I haven't worked out exactly what the mining sheet would want to do in terms of the schedules just yet, so I'll adjust those flight sheets a little bit later in the video so you can actually see what she's actually going to be mining and how she's going to be going. So this one one's called the Obsidian Fury. We've got this one, and then we've got a new name that's coming up here as well. So the new build we're going to do is on the RTX 3080 cards. So we've got 8 GPUs it's going to go in. So 8 of the 3080 cards is going to be going to this rig. We're going to call this one Thor. And the reason why we're calling this Thor is because it actually is going to be, even though it's only 8 GPUs as opposed to the 12 GPUs, this one's actually going to be giving out 800 mega hashes, so even more mega hashes than Obsidian Fury. And you're probably thinking, how come? Because you got 12 cards in here and 8 here. The reason for it is you do actually have a much bigger GPU on these units as well. 10 gigabits versus 10 gigabytes versus the 8 that's sitting over there. But it's more on the cores. This one's got a lot more cores that can actually strip algorithms much more faster. So this one's actually going to be more of an efficient build than what Obsidian is. And hopefully we can get the power ratings right, and we'll undervolt them and overclock them to the right settings so we can get the power correct. But we'll get into that a little bit later about that as well. So this rig is going to be, this build is going to be in its entirety. So we're going to go through the entire build altogether. We had a lot of people asking from the last build, how do you build all these machines? Can you go through and do another video on it bit by bit, step by step, on everything that you've done, how to do it, what equipment that you've used, in the event that they would like to do something like this for themselves. I think it's pretty clever to get into crypto mining, especially right now, and you can do it if you're lucky enough to be able to have the solar array or fortunate enough to be able to pay for power. Then I think it's a great idea. Crypto is going pretty crazy at the moment. If you just take for example Bitcoin, when that was in its beginning early phases, in its infancy phase, it was running pretty damn cheap and no one thought anything about it. And its height point got to $70,000 per Bitcoin. So I think if you were going to get any coins right now, if you imagine if you just got one Bitcoin out of this that's been mined for free, I think you'd be pretty happy with that. So I'll show you all the stats and everything that's coming, but right now let's get into the build. We're going to go start off with what we currently have here. I already built the frame. I did that just yesterday, so that's pretty boring stuff. I didn't want to film that, so I'll put that online. So I already got that up and running, but we'll go through what I've set out here and how to actually go about building it. Now, with the build itself, it's always good to be pre-organized on all the parts, especially when it comes to something that's complex like this. Each part can have different entireties to how it's going to be run and where you're going to be running it. So all of these PCI Express cables that's being plugged into the GPUs, you need to know exactly how many pins that you would need per graphics card, and then how many pins that your power supplies are going to have, but then also the wattage. You need to make sure that each graphics card has sufficient amount of power going to the unit for even if you're running at low mega hashes or all the way to its maximum. You need to make sure that you have plenty of power and you're not starving it of power. Then therefore it's obviously not going to be producing and performing very well and giving you good mega hashes. So I've laid out everything here. So we've got the two 850 power supplies plus 1200 power supplies. That would be more than enough power to be able to run those 850s. We've got an 8 gig memory card. You get 220 gigs on your SSD, Celeron processor. You got your mining motherboard. We got all of the PCI cables ready to go. Plus, I've also added the splitters on, and I'll show you how I worked all that out. Then we got the extension leads to be able to plug in there, also for the PCIe. So these ones are going to be for the risers, and these ones are going to be for the graphics cards itself. Now the 3080s do actually come with, they do require a fair bit of power, and therefore also means you would need a lot of connections. As you can see, there's quite a bit of cables we would need to actually plug into it. So I'll get into that in a second. Then we've got all the PCIe risers to be able to plug in. So we're going to need obviously 8 of those, which will require 6 pins in each, plus a USB to go to the motherboard as well. So there's going to be quite a bit of cables here, and the 3080s do run rather hot, so we would need to be as efficient as we possibly can, keeping cable management to its best, so we can keep airflow running directly through those units. The 3080s do have a temperature issue, and if they're not at the correct temperatures, they go into this mode called thermal throttling. And unfortunately what that does is lower those mega hashes quite significantly. So normally the 3080s, we're giving you 100 mega hashes. You'll probably get about that 60 to 70 if it's thermal throttled. So not fun, and it won't be an efficient build. So we have to make sure that the rig itself is going to be as clean, as efficient, as cable managed as you possibly can, just to be able to get all that airflow. Alright, so let's go into working out what goes where. So let's go to the board. The board itself, I've worked out all the power requirements for this actual build. So it's going to be an 8 GPU rig. We've got the 3080s in there. Each card requires 3 of the 8 pins. There's 24 pins in total just for the cards. But don't forget, we also will need power for the risers. So each riser has a 6 pin in each. And I'll pull them out so you can have a look at them as well. So we're going to need 8 of those 6 pins as well. So you got 30 of them. So we worked out we've got 4 power supplies that we're going to be running. We've got a primary one with a PSU at 1200 watts. So we're going to be running probably 2 cards off that. And the way we're going to be splitting out those cards, each GPU obviously has 3 of the 8 pins, plus you got the 6 pin riser. So what we're going to do, we're going to use 2 of the 8 pins PCI Expresses. 2 of them are going to come out, and then on the original PCI Express, it comes out to an original splitter, which has 8 and 8 on either side, so that's 2. But then we need another 2 more to be able to add on. So we're going to run another 8 pin from the PSU all the way up to the graphics card as well. So there'll be 2 sets of 8s into splitters. So we'll have 4 in total to be able to go to the GPU. So one of those additional splits can go into that last third 8 pin. Now there are a different arrangement on the graphics cards, which I'll show you a bit later in the video. And then we can use that secondary 8 pin and just use because they are 6 plus 2 pins as well. So you can break it down to a 6. Just rip off those N2, the plus 64 and plus grounding cable, which is a black and yellow, I think it is. And so pull them off, and then you'll have a 6 pin that you can go straight into the riser. So each card is literally going to have 2 8 pins running to it as well. So all 4 power supplies we'll have 2 cards running out on each. So it's going to be lots and lots of cables running to it. So we'll have to make sure that we do all of the cable management as best as we can. Outside that, we will need a 24-pin power cable, RTX power cable that comes with it. It's a 2-pot pin, 24 pins obviously on the motherboard, and then on the actual PSU it is a 24 pin, and it's also an 8 pin as well. There's another little notch there which I didn't bother drawing, but altogether it comes up with 24 pins. So we'll need to connect that to the actual motherboard, to the actual unit, and then we'll need a 8 pin to the CPU as well. So the CPU core is going to need some power too. So the primary one PSU will actually have the majority of the actual system running power riding off that. So that's why we wanted to have it on the 1200 watt, to make sure that the system itself in its entirety will actually have a decent amount of power. Then we'll have the PSU2, which is your slave power. That's going to be running the 850 watt. It's only just going to be running 2 GPUs. As you can see, just two GPUs is going to be running up there, and that is it. Then the other secondary primary is on that 1200, was also just going to have 2. And then the other last slave of the smaller PSU, the 851, will also just run just the 2 power supplies directly off that. 2 GPUs obviously directly off that. And that's pretty much all we would need to be able to go there. We probably should add in the other power requirements, which is only just like the SATA SSD. So that's just going to be running straight off the 6 pin from any one of the others. I'll put it on the slave PSU. So it's not off the primary one, to come off the 6 pin. And then we can plug that straight into your SSD to get that primary power. I might actually change that to the primary PSU on 1200, because we will have sufficient 6 pins off that, and we will have sufficient power. That each one of these GPUs should be rigged for 3 of the 3080s, and I'm only running 2, so we still have sufficient power to be able to run that SSD. So maybe later in the build I will actually go through that and figure out which way we want it to go. Now, another question that a lot of people were asking, or are asking, is why did we go with the 3080 cards as opposed to more of the 3070s? And to put simply, it was better math and better performance we're going to be getting at it. Traditionally, those cards were a lot more expensive. So on the actual builds, the 3070s, 12 of them equated to, at best prices, around about $1599. 12 of them pretty much came up to about almost $19,200 odd, and that was giving us about 753 mega hashes. Now, at that time, the 3080s, they were normally 2,999, and getting out of those cards will obviously be a lot more than the 3070s. So the 3070s was at the time a more sufficient build. But now the prices for the 3080s actually have dropped down to $21,999, and that actually goes up to 17.5K for that, and 800 mega hashes as well. So it was actually a better build to actually do. So if anyone who's thinking to be able to go through, 3070s are a fantastic card, and they run really, really efficient. You can probably get them at a better price than $1599 now anyway. So you can probably have a look at that if you're looking at getting into some of the rigs. But if you were looking to be able to get something like this particular size rig, and you're happy to spend that type of dollar, then the 3080s would be the better option to do. You can literally get away with 8 of those GPUs that will do more hashing power than this 12 3070 rig. So yeah, food for thought, and it'll be more efficient when it comes to the powers once we obviously undervolt them and overclock those units. So hopefully all that made sense. If it doesn't, leave me comments or send me messages or something later. I'm happy to help out anyone that would like to obviously get into this. There's no drama with that as well. And yeah, all right, let's get into the next part of the build, which will get into stripping out some of the gear. We'll start from the base all the way up to the top. This coverage will also go through the Hive system as well. So a lot of people were asking about how do we run Linux, how do you run Hive, and all of the above. So I'll be going through all of those bits and pieces. So those people who was asking the questions from the last videos, let's start getting into it. We'll start stripping out the actual motherboard itself. And then yeah, we'll flip this camera around. We'll just have you sitting at the front here. Then we can probably get into all the bits and pieces. So we'll probably start with the big chunk of it first. So let's go with the motherboard. I went with the BTC 360s. This one gives us 12 GPUs. We're only going to use 8 here in this actual build, but in the event that I would like to obviously start using more GPUs, then this will be able to support with the actual units, along with the power supplies to go with that too. So as you can see, I started off with one build thinking that was going to be fine, but then I found more efficient ways to be able to do other ones. So I'm just leaving room for the future. So in case I wanted to do some upgrades, or in case I wanted to add some more things, I'll make my rig a bit more efficient. So the normal goodies that you get out of here is just your SATA cables, your PCI Express plug at the back, and then obviously the actual motherboard itself. So let's pull her out and get rid of all the rubbish in the box. We don't need any of that. Standard motherboard. All looks pretty good. Nice brand new ones. You have your full-size PCI East x16 card. Now that's going to give obviously the most power. Then you'll have the PCI Express x1 cards just down below. As you can see, there's quite a few different rivets all the way through. Different sizes as well. You can actually put a full-size card in there, and then all the risers will plug into the bottom here as well. So that's what the card is. So we'll go ahead and we'll start organizing the actual motherboard first, which means we'll put on all of the equipment onto it first, the CPU, the RAM, and then get all the power cables and things organized for that. And then yeah, once we can get that going, then we can probably start putting it onto the motherboard, onto the rig. And then once we got it onto the rig, we can start screwing that down. Then we can just start adding all of the other components. We'll add in the processor to that as well. We'll add the SSD and obviously the RAM to go with that as well. Now, another thing to keep in mind with your processor, you will need thermal paste to be able to put the paste down as well. So the paste is obviously just going to be on top of where the CPU is going to go, just to stop it from obviously overheating and things. But it's a GPU mining rig. The GPU mining rig obviously means it's going to be running hot on the GPUs itself as opposed to the processor. So you don't need too much, don't pay too much attention to that, so that's fine. Manuals, don't really need manuals. Who reads manuals these days anyway? So we should be fine to be able to go through it. Just follow the instructions and you'll be okay. The biggest things to worry about on motherboards is to find out which slots can run what type of brand of cards. There is some motherboards that will only do the first 5 that can only run NVIDIA cards, and then the last remaining ones can be anything, a mixture of AMD cards, which are your reds, or an actual dedicated mining rig graphics card. So be sure to have a look at either the manuals or the specifications of the motherboard before you purchase your graphics cards or any other subsequent cards and things you're going to be placing onto your motherboard. Alright, so let's get cracking onto this. Let's start off with, we'll go with the CPU. Let's add in CPU power. So all we do is just flip up the notch just here. Notch just flips up, and then you can open up the latch there so you can get into the CPU. Once we get that open, so then we'll go ahead and we'll crack open the box. And we need our trusty scissors. Where are ya? Stanley. Get you open. Rubbish. Don't need. Manual. Nobody reads. And CPU. Fan. Now just be careful as well. It already has thermal paste on the bottom as well as standard for that. It's not very much, but it's probably nice and dry at the moment, but it's still not going to be sufficient, so I would suggest and recommend adding on your own thermal paste as well. It doesn't need a lot. they're pretty cheap anyway, and it'll save the processor from burning out. So let's add you on. Processor ready to go. So let's crack you open, and then we'll place it straight onto the motherboard, so we're not having it just sitting around. Now the trick to putting on processors, if you see, there's little notches on the corners here, and there's another little notch at the top here as well. You can only really go in one way, so you can't screw it up that much. But for somehow, if you did get it in the wrong way, you could burn out your CPU, which is not fun, and they're pretty scarce to get. They're cheap, but they're scarce. So let's put that in quite nicely. It just slots right in, just like that. Just plugs in just here, and then once it's in, all you do is just close down that lip, push down on the trigger, on the latch. The safety clip comes off, which you don't need. Throw that away, and then it looks like that. So it's nice and secure. Processor's in, all set. Now once you've got it on there, we want to go ahead and we want to add on some of the thermal paste. But before you do that, let's just make sure that the fan lines up nice and well. Now we want to line the fan up to the point where we can add in, or we know where the CPU fan is going to plug into. So just be mindful of where the cable is going to run, and position your fan in such a way that you're not getting the cable caught in anything. And then the actual cable can just plug into that actual unit with a fair bit of length in there as well. So somewhere around about there, I think will be looking pretty good. Just plugs in just like this. So that looks good. So now before we actually plug it in, we want to go in and add on some of that thermal paste. So let's go crank you open just a little bit. Just want to just pile on just a little squirt of it, not a lot. So I'll show you what that looks like. It's literally just like that. Don't need a lot. A lot of people then need to be able to scrape it on to get it across all the corners. You don't need to do it quite like that. It's literally just going to be enough. Once you put the power supply on, it'll create a nice adhesive all the way through. A nice little layer to keep it nice and cool in the event that it does get pretty warm. But we know it won't, so it's okay. Let's chuck the CPU on, like so. And then once it's on there as well, all you do is just kind of push down on the corners, and then you start hearing the clicks for the actual grips to go in through the motherboard and clip into the other side. So they kind of just goes through, and that one doesn't want to clip in. Let's give it a bit of a push. There you go. So as you can see, the clips just go straight in, pop on either side. And there you go. So that CPU isn't going anywhere at all. So let's go ahead and we'll also at this time plug in the CPU fan. So just as you can see here, it's just a CPU fan. Can only go in obviously one way as well. Slide in. Remember, black is always onto the left side, and it be your blues on the right. So that's it. Nice easy connection there for your CPU. Just going to do some quick cable management around the side so nothing gets caught. And that's it. There you go. So cables are nice all the way around the side, so it doesn't get caught in the fan, and it won't get caught on anything else that's going to be around on the actual motherboard itself. So that's one part done. Now the next thing that's left, what we're going to do for the motherboard prep prior to putting it on the rig, is we're going to get the RAM in. So let's go ahead and crack you open. Like so. Who's that? Okay, RAM chip rubbish. Get rid of. simple, easy RAM chips. 244 pin. Nice and easy. Now you'll be able to notice there is a notch that's sitting in the center. One side is longer than the other. One side's got a lot more pins. So it can again only go in one way as well. So just be mindful of those ones that's going to be going. Keep a good look on those units. Now they are brand new as well, so they shouldn't have any dust or anything across it on the pins itself. But sometimes it does happen, especially when things that are left in storage. So let's just go ahead, put the RAM chip in. Make sure you open up those latches. RAM chip goes in. Make sure there's notches in the right place, and then just push down until you hear that clip. So the clip just kind of goes in, as you see there. Pushed on both ends, and make sure those side clips are all the way in. So that there you go. So the RAM isn't going anywhere. So that's in nice. So just double check that the RAM's in, CPU is in, and there's no issues. And everything looks pretty good. So I'm happy with that. Let me get rid of this stuff. More cables and things you can add over here. Boxes, SSD we'll get to in a bit. We don't need any more of the thermal paste. Just put you away. Then now let's go and we'll get into actually putting the motherboard onto the rig. Now we can't just place it straight onto the actual rig itself. So if you want to have a look on the rig, you got these little notches that you can actually screw all these rivets in. It'll raise up the motherboard just a little bit. So we probably would need these golden screws. Have these in there. They'll go through on each of those corners, so the motherboard can sit on as well. So let's go ahead and we'll do that. Put you in over here so you guys can see. Then we'll add in the rivets. So pretty good, got a good idea on where all of them are going to actually go and sit. So the motherboard is going to be facing out this way. So when it does face out to the front, it's going to be playing on either one of the sides at the back here. So it's going to be just facing at the front here, like so. So we can use all those connections on this end to have it. So this side over here is going to be the front end for the actual motherboard itself. So that's just going to clip in like so. So we're probably going to have 1, 2 slots just there. So let's go ahead and put those 2 in now. Screw you in there, and screw you in there. So that's those first 2. 1, 2, and then where's the next one's got to go? One at the back, so those 2 here. So let's go ahead and plug you in here. You can go there. And then you can go over here. Make sure they line up as well. The more screws in, the more secure the board's going to be. So it'll be in your best interest to plug in as many as you can, as many as you can fit, especially in all of the corners as well. Let's go ahead and put another 2 more. You've got quite a few screws that usually come with your rig. So just plug her in. Yep. Sorry, phone keeps moving everywhere. That's that one, and I think there was one more or so we can probably put it back here. So you can see all of those holes that we can put in. 1, 2. There's another one we can just do here as well. So let's go ahead and plug you in as well. Where was it? It was at the back here somewhere, wasn't it? Right here. Okay. So I think that's looking pretty good. Let's just line up and just double check. 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 slots. It looks pretty secure. Alright, I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead and we'll get the next screws. We probably would need the KCFs to be able to plug in there. Now they're just a short 4mm screw. And they will just kind of just go in. Let's just plug you here. They kind of just feed in on the corners. Just go give them a, just drop some screws in. Like so. Get your Allen key. There you go, we'll put you over here. Now, I always like to get each of those corners in first. So start with from the left to the right, top to bottom. And the good thing about that, it aligns the motherboard right up to where you would need it to be. And then the rest of the screws just kind of fit in quite well. So it's more just for alignment sakes. Therefore you're not always adjusting every time you're putting in new screws or anything to that effect. Pretty simple stuff. But however you wish to do it is totally fine as well. Go ahead and we'll get all of the screws in so we keep the motherboard nice and secure. And when it is secure, that means you can add in and push down onto those PCI Expresses, or if we need to add in the 8-pin power cable or 24 pins, or if we just need to do any maintenance on there as well. So always good to be able to have it secure so you're not pushing down extra force onto a weak part of the motherboard. You can just end up snapping it, which is not good for your rig. Nobody wants that. Okay, let's get this last screw in. There's that one. We've got one more over here. Let's go ahead, plug you in. 1, 2. There you are. Oh, I almost missed one. There's one more there. So let's get you in right there, right next to the RAM. There's one more slot there. Now these rigs, you don't need a lot of CPU power or RAM. It's only going to be running Linux on there. So it's really, really efficient. They don't need to add Windows. They need to have quite a bit of processing power on the actual CPU, because all of the processing and the hashing is going to come from the graphics cards itself. So go out and just grab the cheapest CPU, provided that it's supported on your motherboard, and you're ready to go. One stick of 8 gigs of RAM and you're sorted. So that's what it looks like. Motherboard sorted, all the screws in, and looking pretty good. Yes, I'm getting a lot of comments in regards to the beard. I'm sure that will come through a little bit later. Yes, we'll see more of it. Just answer a couple of comments there. Yes, we'll get into the GPU build. We'll also get into Hive. What was the other one that they said? Okay, so motherboard is in. Let's go ahead. We don't need the boxes or for them anymore, so let's go put you aside. You can go over here. So the next thing we'd want to do is we'll probably want to get in the power supplies. We're probably going to put them on either end of the corners there. So we'll probably add in those. Manuals we don't need. Nobody reads, we can put them over there. Let's go ahead and get these power supplies open. So what we want to do is build each level by level. So the bottom layer, it's going to comprise of just your motherboard and 4 power supplies. So 2 on this end, 2 on this end. And what we're going to do, we're going to have each of the left and right power supplies giving you power cables to the left 3 or 4 graphics cards, to the right power supply doing the remaining graphics cards on this side. So the left side by 4, the right side by 4, just so we can keep all the cables in the nice easy way, so we're not crossing over cable to cable. Just makes it nice and simple. We're only going to go to 1 level this time. We're not going to do the dual like we did on Obsidian. No need to do that, but who knows, maybe in the future we might add on another 8 cards, so then we can use that second level and do that. But for now, this one will be sufficient. 8 cards I think will be okay. So let's go ahead, we'll put you down over here, that we can start getting the build going from this end. We'll crack open all of the boxes. So power supplies I'm using is, we're going to go with the Corsairs. So it's going to be 2 of the 850s. And we're going to have two of the 1200 watt power supplies. So majority of these ones will actually have quite a few of the PSU outputs as well, which we definitely needed for the 3080 builds, because remember they require three of the PCI Express cables, three of the 8 pins, to go into the actual graphics card itself. So yeah, a lot of power is obviously required for that, and nothing worse than not having the correct power supplies for your rigs. Then your graphics cards, they just don't turn on, and then they don't do anything for you. So very important that you work out how much power you are required for your rig when your graphics cards are running at full potential. And to save yourself a lot of hassle, do that before you purchase any rigs. Make sure you work out what all of the power requirements are prior to purchasing anything. And you do that, then you're going to save yourself a world of hurt. More manuals that we don't read, let's put them over here. Cable ties, bag of cables, and we've got quite a bit of cables already, so we won't need them. And then let's get the power supply itself. So pull it out. Power supply. As you can see, just a standard power supply. But the beauty with these ones, the more wattage that you're going to have, the more connections you're going to get at the back here. So this one's going to give us 6 8-pin PCI Expresses. So I can actually run 3 of the 3080 cards directly off one PSU if I wanted to. But we are going to be having other equipment running off here as well, so I don't want to push the power supplies too heavy, and I also want to make sure that they're going to be running at efficient levels. So that's why I split them across multiple different types of PSUs. You can build this rig on just 2 PSUs. You can get the 2 1300 watts and will be sufficient. You could even do it on the 2 of the 12s, but it's really pushing it. And every time you're going to go on a power supplies, you always want to only go up to a maximum of 80%. You always need 20% of a buffer first before, just for fail safe as well. You don't want to be pushing them too hard. So that's power supply 1. Let's put you down over here. You don't need anything else from the box. Let's put in all the manuals and crap we don't need. Close you up. Get in. And you can add that to the jumper. The box we don't need, we'll just add you to the bin pile over there. 850s we're going to open up as well. Get them all out. Same deal, manuals, get rid of. Cable ties will keep. bag of cables always come in handy. Power supply, just show you the quick differences as well. It's an 850 unit, but you can see at the back here, it's only got limited to, in terms of the PCI Express cables, it's only got 5 as opposed to the 6 that we had over here. So the most I could run on here is only 2 of the 3080s, which is kind of what we'll do over here. Then we'll split out some of the powers for the fans and things later. So that's power supply 2. Plug you in. You can go back in the box. Here. Add some batch. 850. Okay. Same deal, nothing new here. Bag of cables. I'm going to have a lot of cables at the end of this. Building 2 rigs. Cables galore. Okay, close you up. Last power supply. Yeah. 1200, ready to go. Cable ties always come in handy. Box we don't need. Add it to the junk. Alright, bags of cables you get rid of, don't need. Room. Okay. So arrangements of the PSUs, we're going to put them upright like this, making sure that the fan is blowing out and they're not obstructed by anything. So we'll have one facing outwards this way and the other one facing inwards this way. So I'll put them down so you can actually have a look at what they would look like. So let's plug them in here. So each power supply will just kind of sit like so. And then we'll get we've got these little brackets that kind of just screw into the sides. So we'll work on that one in a second. There you go. There's 2 brackets that kind of just go on the side there. Let's just go ahead and go with the power supplies kind of sitting in there first. So that's those 2. Let's get 2 in as well. Plenty of room. Like so. Power supplies will just line up to that outside. bring it over so you can see. So you can see that the power supplies, they're going to be going upright as they are right now. I've got the fan on the outsides on both of the PSUs and on the other side as well. So nothing is obstructed there. So what we're going to do, we're going to get these brackets that's going to sit across here, and they'll be able to screw into the frame. So that will house the actual the PSUs to the frame. Now I'm going to get the 3D printer over there to be able to print out a correct size bracket for it, but we don't need to do that right now. Just get something in there that is going to keep it semi-safe for now, so when we do move the rig around, it'll be nice and safe and secure. Also when we're going to be plugging in obviously the cables and stuff as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and we'll get into the next bits, which is probably the fun parts, but we can probably do some of the software at the same time as well, because that's going to take some time to flash the SSD, and then we can probably, while we're doing that, get some of the cables sorted. First, let's go ahead and we'll just secure that PSU first. So let's go put you back over here. So we'll grab the brackets and then get our Stanley, so we can just strip. Strip that plywood off it. So it's actually a clear plastic. It's just a Perspex printed plastic. There you go, and that's pretty much what it looks like. And then that's what's going to just plug into the front end of the actual the PSU units. So we'll probably go put this one along here somewhere. What do we need? We need PSU bolts, those cables, and here. Great. And then we probably need Allen keys as well. Oops. Go ahead and put you guys over here so you can see a bit more. So we'll add in the actual clip, and we need the bolts to go with them as well to screw into the frame. So that's going to go right along here. Here, there. So 1, 2. And we'll add one more at the top, just for good measure. So then that way we'll keep the bracket nice and safe, and then thus the bracket safe. PSU is going to be safe as well. Nice and secure. Just a couple of latches. There you go. And get PSU. Make sure it lines up, and screw it in. Oops. Nice. Okay, then just give it a bit of a tighten. So once that's in, that's one done. So I'll show you what it looks like. So the bracket that just screws into obviously the frame on either end. We've got the one screw that just screws in the one power supply. Now keep in mind that bracket isn't great for these PSU. I will 3D print another bracket that will go across all of them, and that will keep it in place. But for now, that's going to be fine. We'll get the other bracket to go across here to keep that second PSU in place. And that'll be enough for us to be able to at least get the rig up and running. So let's go ahead and we'll put you back over here. And then we'll get that other bracket on. How should you do it? Nice. Mining away over there. Hey guys, yep, ready, that's right. Step 1, step 2, we're up to power supplies. So we're just getting to the next bits we're going to follow is going to be, we'll install Hive and Linux and do all of that onto the SSDs. So that you want to probably pay pretty close attention to that and how we're going to do it. It's actually not overly too difficult, but those who are not familiar with Linux or Hive itself, it'll be a good step. Just follow the instructions and you shouldn't be too bad. Alright, so let's get these PSUs in and we'll get to that. Yes, all those who's coming up with comments for what happened to the beard, it's mostly because I'm not going anywhere. We're in lockdown at the moment, and I was actually getting quite a bit of white stubble come through, which was always fun. Yes, age gets to you. Nah, it's only old as you feel, or some crap like that. Alright, so next bracket's going to plug in here. On the back end, there will be a bit of an overhang, but that's okay. Remember, this is only just temporary brackets just to keep something in place. So we'll go ahead and we'll install that. So we need 2 more of these, 2 more screws and 2 more rivets to go with it as well. One in. Okay, plug you in, come on. Okay, that's 1. 2. And, oops, we went up there. Brady, why are you scared of installing Linux? It's just another operating system. Just like the good old days with Red Hat, DOS. Nothing too different there. But you'll be surprised. It's actually quite easy to do in this way. Hive has built in a really good and really efficient way to install it all. So we'll go through it all, so don't worry. And if you have any questions, just post them up and we'll go through it. Alright, PSU 2. Okay, PSU2 in, so they're nice and stable. They're not going anywhere. It's only been held in by the one. I don't like it, but it'll be enough for now. Once we can start printing off the 3D bracket to go around the entire frame, it'll be a lot more secure. But for now, that's looking pretty good. Let's get on to the other side. Once they're secure, we'll get stuck into doing Hive. So stay tuned. I'll flip you around. You can sit over here. You can watch the other side. Okay, that's those two brackets. Actually, there's only one frame here. Oh, that's going to be a problem. Okay, let's go and see what we can do for this bracket. Slight issue. I forgot about those plastic brackets. Each frame only comes with 2, and I had 4 last time because I had 2 frames. That kind of works, but it's not going to work here. So what I'll do, I'll just modify each of those plastic brackets. Now these ones were used for the SSD, so I'll actually have the SSD screwed straight into the frame this time, as opposed to putting on here, because I'm going to use these to line up for the outsides. It does look like it line. Yeah. Yeah, I think we can get away with that. Just maybe. Let's see what I have over here. It's gonna have to do. There's not much else I can do right now. Alright, well, let's go ahead and plug you in. Let's strip out the cable, the plastic. Plastic 1. Let's get plastic 2 done. Pretty standard. Let's go ahead and plug. More rivets and screws. Now let's see how this is going to work. Okay, good. That goes in there. Get in there. Okay, bracket 1 is in. Let's see how we're going to do bracket 2. Bracket 2 is going to be interesting. That's alright. Screw this in a bit better. Go ahead and rip these out. Okay, come out. Now once we've got these PSUs in place, we'll go ahead and get the software running, and then we'll jump straight from that to probably installing cables to the motherboard, and just we'll start finishing off that level. And then by the time we finish there, the software should be installed and flashed onto that SSD, and then we can start closing off that level, and then we'll add in a single GPU, connect that and make sure that that is up and running and able to mine before we add in all of the others. It's just good practice to be able to do. Excuse me. Just so you know that the actual rig will, 1, turn on, 2, mine, and there is sufficient power going to the unit as well without actually having any problems. And if there was problems, it's always much easier to be able to troubleshoot than troubleshooting an entire rig. Okay, let's get you in. How's the questions going? Okay. Now, how do we want to do this? I want to plug you in over here. So connect that. And then we'll connect this into here as well. Great, so that will just screw in like so. And then I'll tighten up the bracket on the frame. Great. Okay, so it's not ideal, but it's enough to be able to hold it in place to at least get the rig up and running. So we'll go ahead and we'll just get that sorted. Now let's keep moving on to the next one. I'll print out those 3D brackets at some point and we'll secure that a bit better. But for now, it'll be fine. Let's now get on to flashing that SSD and getting Linux and Hive OS onto that actual unit. Sorry, Raddy, we're going to go ahead, but catch up whenever you get a chance. So what are we going to need? Going to need your SSD. Now, there's two ways you can do it on these units. You can either go on a USB or SSD. SSD is far more secure and far more stable, so I'd always recommend to run it on an SSD. It doesn't need to be anything big, just needs to be any type of newer age at something that's nice and fast. This is a 10 times speed, and it needs to be obviously SATA powered as well. And then that's really about it. So let's go ahead and see what we would need to do. So first off, we would need to go down to Hive. So you can pretty much just go to hiveos.com. So let's go punch it in here. Go Hive. So just go to Hive. Just Google Hive OS, and you come up to this main page. Once you get to this main page, you'll be able to see at the very top over here where it says Features, Pricing, and Install. So let's go ahead and just hit on Install, and I'll come up with a few options here for what type of rigs and things that you want to do. ASICs hubs, GPU, and beta mining and stuff. So what we want to do is obviously on the GPU mining page, there's two options. There's a torrent and there's a zip. And see at the top where it says stable version. Since our graphics cards are pretty new-ish, we want to run it obviously on the stable version. So go ahead and just download that zip file. Once it's clicked there, it's just going to go ahead and start downloading. So that shouldn't take too long to do. It's about 2 to 3 gigs worth. And so it shouldn't take too long. Let's just go into download, let's have a look. And then we should have it sitting here. Yep, go away. And there it is. So Hive OS, 1.2 gigs. So once it's downloaded, then your file's then ready to go for it to be flashed onto the SSD. So we'll go ahead and we'll open up the actual package as well. So we'll go get the package opened, and we would need some SSDs out and sorted. As you see, nothing special, just a standard SSD with SATA and power cables that just plug into it as per normal. And once you got that SSD plugged in, then we're going to need to be able to go and actually plug it into the computer. So I've got a SATA to USB cable that just kind of plugs straight in. Really simple stuff, nothing special about that. We'll go ahead and we'll plug you in. Just going to put you down for a quick second. Once it's plugged in, it should be able to come up on your computer. And let's go PC. Alright, so let's load that. Get the downloads. Alright, Hive OS. Okay, flash from file. Okay, so once you got that file downloaded, so that's already set and done over here. In your downloads, right, Hive OS, there's that stable image. Stable image is already good. Downloaded 7.3 gigs. So once it's extracted, it's a pretty decent size. So once you've done that, we're going to need to flash that onto the SSD itself. So what we're going to be able to use to be able to flash it onto that SSD is a couple of different programs that you can use, but we're going to use one of the change content image, right, choose flash. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and plug in. Actually, why did that pop up? SSD plugged in. And let's open up. So I use this program called Balena Etcher. So let's just open that program up, and what that's going to do is going to flash that. It'll flash the the Hive OS onto the actual drive itself. And so it doesn't want to come up. So let's just go in, we'll disconnect you and just plug you back in. So it normally just comes up with 2 of the green lights. Just make sure you're connected. And we'll plug you back in. Oops. Great, so we've got drives on there just fine. Open up Bellino Etcher. And let's see what's happening here. Okay, so we've got Kingston showing up there as well. So you just want to go flash from file, go to where that file was. Once it's been extracted, you can be able to see it comes up as the icon now. It says disk image. Just go hit open. Now see it's set to the Kingston drive. Just make sure that it is actually set to the drive that we just installed. Otherwise you'll be install it onto another drive, which could be your main hard drive. But it is selected to that. So just go ahead and hit flash. And it'll go ahead and start flashing. It'll just come up. Are you sure you want to be able to do it? Yes, we do. And it's going to go ahead and start flashing Hive OS onto that SSD. Now once it's doing that, while it's doing that, let's go back into Hive itself, and we have to go ahead and go create a worker for the new rig that we're going to be building as well. So let's go into, for those who aren't familiar with Hive, basically just go log on and create yourself an account. Once you have an account, you'll be able to then come up to this main page, which you won't be able to see any of the farms that you have here at the moment. I've already got one farm that's obviously up and running, which has the my original rig, which is up and running at the moment. As you can see, Obsidian Fury is the 123070, and she's up right now and running. So what we want to do is kind of just go into my farm, and we want to just be able to go and add in a worker. Excuse me. So once we start adding in the workers, then we'll have a few options in regards to what we want those to actual cards to start mining. So we add Obsidian Fury that you can see here is working quite well. And then we'll add in the secondary one, and we'll give that a call, and we'll call that we're going to call the 3080 Thor. So I think that's going to be good. So there you go. So flash is now complete. We don't want to flash obviously anything else. Let's just go ahead and we'll close that for a second. And let's just go in and we'll start adding in a worker. So just go to the top over here, go add worker. We want to make sure that the platform is set. We want to set that to GPU mining. And we're going to name this one, we're going to call this Thor. Password, we're just going to let it generate. Just hit the little round numbers over there, it'll refresh it. Any type of tags you want to do on this one, we're just going to give it a tag called Thor. And the description, let's put it in as RTX 3080 by 8. So we know what it is. So we want to go and add in obviously a worker to any particular type of miner, then this is what we can look for, or we can just look for the tags itself. That's pretty much it. So just go ahead and add, and then it'll come up with something like this. It says it looks like something news here. What are we going to do with it? So this is what they call the rig ID. You can write these down, you can copy it, paste it. That's what the rig passwords and things are going to be. Nothing really great, but what you really want is this download rig config. So hit that. It'll download the rig config file into your download. So let's go ahead, we'll go grab that. That's going to be important. So just cut that there, and we want to paste that into the Hive OS drive. Now notice how there's no drive that shows up here at the moment, and we did see earlier that it did actually flash on there. So what that's mostly happening there is, could be two things. One, that the drive is not Windows is not assigning an actual drive to itself. So let's just go into right click and manage on the PC, and it'll come up with your device manager. Then go down to disk management, and it says obviously to initialize that disk that was sitting on there. So it's there at the moment, so it's looking. So let's just go ahead, and what we'll do, we'll disconnect it and then reconnect the actual drive itself. I'm just going to put it down for a quick second. So disconnect the drive, give it a couple of seconds. Once it's been disconnected, it doesn't show anything on the computer anymore. And then go ahead and just connect it back. And that should be able to come up with a few details there, we hope. And in the event that it doesn't, nope, there you go. So it pops up there fine. Hive OS is there, so we just go ahead and paste that config file right there out in the open. It doesn't need to be on any of the any folders or anything like that. That's really where it's going to be finding. You can get rid of the rig config examples, so you can get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. If you are looking to run things on Wi-Fi, you have to go into the network and actually update the Wi-Fi file. I don't recommend this because you really would need a hardwired connection. Hardwired connection will give really good stability to the actual unit itself. Stability, and it'll also give low latencies so that your hash rates can be high, and that you'll be able to get really good returns on your coins. So I don't recommend doing it any other way other than a hardwired connection. So that's pretty much all you would need to do when it comes to the actual build itself. So go ahead and eject the actual drive itself. So right click and we'll just go, you want to go eject the drive. Go ahead and eject, safe to now remove. We'll go pull you out in a moment. So the drive is now ready to go. So we'll put you just over here. And then we'll get into the power requirements for the build itself. So we'll go ahead and we'll get the power done, and then we'll plug in the SSD, and then we'll put only one graphics card on first. We'll load them up there on one of the 1200 watt PCUs, and then we'll connect up and see how it actually would, one, turn on, two, mine, and make sure it actually will register on Hive OS as well. Just like what we did over there with Obsidian Fury, and that's what we're going to do over here. So let's go ahead, we'll put you back over here, then we can start it into the build itself. Then close that off. Okay, so let's go ahead, keep the hard drive nice and safe, just up on the side there. Don't need it just yet, you can get rid of all the rubbish for it as well. Just keep your workbench nice and clean. Don't need things. Okay. Alright, so what we want to do now is we want to get the power for the PSUs. We want to connect them from the actual PSU units to the motherboard. Now what we're going to need is two 24 pins to go from the motherboard to the power supplies, and you would also need a 24 pin to dual PSU power supply converter. So what that will do is give you the ability to run from one socket into two. So we would need two of those to run 2 to 4. But I don't actually have that cable here at the moment. It's one thing that didn't get delivered. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to short out the power for the 850s. And that will just obviously get the unit to turn on manually. I don't recommend doing that if you're not familiar with how to do it, or if you're not experienced enough. I don't recommend doing that. So make sure you have the correct equipment, or if you're confident enough to be able to do it on the actual unit itself, then go ahead and do it. It's individual pins on the actual PSU that you'll actually have to short. And I'll show you some of those pins now. Let's go ahead and we'll open up some of those bag cables. There you go. So this is your 24 pin to your duals. So 24 pin obviously goes into your motherboard, and then your two slots will go into your PSUs. So pin on the other end, 8 and 6, have a look on your PSUs. Those are the ones you will need to be able to short to be able to turn them on. Again, I don't recommend it if you're not experienced. If you're not, then make sure you just get the right equipment. You can just get those PSUs to dual splitters, which is basically a split out there so you can safely have that secondary PSU plugged in and powered on. So let's go ahead and just get the main PSUs up and running. So that's one there. Let's get the other one out. Two. So bag full of cables, and go. For now, actually we'll need an 8 to 8 CPU pin as well. So we'll need the 8 to 8s. You can see that they are labeled. It says CPU on there as well. We're going to need CPU power to go from the main PSU1, the primary, to the motherboard. So we'll need just one of those is all we will need. So let's go ahead and I'll bring you over so you can see a bit better. And let's bring the box as well. So you can actually see what's happening with the actual motherboard itself. Okay, great. Now, okay, we're going to have a look at the units here at the moment. So we've got the smaller PSU and then you got the bigger PSU. So primary 1 is going to be the 1200 watt unit there. So what we want to do, let's go ahead and we'll connect up the CPU and we'll get the CPU power plugged in. This is literally just here. So it's just an 8 pin that just needs to go plug into any one of the available 8 pins that we'll have. Now keep in mind that we're going to need the 8 pins at the top here to run the cables out to the graphics cards. So I would suggest that maybe put the 8 pin in somewhere down the bottom, because it doesn't need to run very far. It just needs to get to the 8 pin on the actual motherboard itself. So I'll plug her in, then I'll give you a look on exactly where it goes and then how it actually connects as well. Great. So just 8 pin out on the PSU into the 8 pin just here of the motherboard. So that's it. You can probably just do some cable management there if you wish. So you can probably just tidy that up a little bit, like so. Remember, this rig is going to be very cable heavy, so it'll be ideal to cable manage as best as you can as you go. Otherwise it will just be a cable logistic nightmare later on, and it's really not going to help with the efficiencies on the heat. So do it as you go and it'll make your life so much more easier. Okay, so that's that one plugged in. Now we want to get the RTX power supply plugged in from the motherboard to the PSU. So we'll go ahead and we'll plug in the PSU one first. 2 slots. Goes into the RTX power supply. Plug in one there. Whoops. Get in. And plug 2. Make sure it actually goes in nice and tight. There we go. We'll have to fix and adjust that bracket. Let's have a look at while I'm here. Don't like it. Okay, I'll come back to that. Okay, so PSU cable in nicely. Okay, then you want to get the other end of the RTX power supply. That's going to go and plug into the primary 1 on the motherboard. Just like that. Plugged in on primary 1. So that takes care of PSU number 1 and power supply to the CPU on the other. Now we want to go ahead and plug in that secondary power supply as well, which will plug in from here to that secondary slot of the motherboard, sorry, the PSU, and that will provide obviously power to that. Let's go ahead and connect you. So that plugs in here. Get in there. Oh, nice and tight. go. Once it's in, just needs to actually going in. There you go, make sure it clicks in. Feed that cable all the way around to the secondary PSU. So remember, this is the secondary primary. Remember, we're going to have two primaries, which is the two 1200 watts, and two of your secondary slaves. Great. Just plugged in like that. Let's just do some quick cable management. I really don't like that bracket. And this one over here, see, that one's nice and stable, and this one's not so much, but it'll do for now. So let's just go plug you in. Okay, great. Now we need to get SATA cable in for the SSD, and we're going to need some power for that as well. So let's just go put you up over here. So you can watch, SSD is going to come over here. We'll go ahead and get the SATA cable out for that. SATA cable is just your standard SATA. We're going to plug that into SATA 1 on the motherboard. So SATA 1. And then that's going to go from there into the SATA cable on the SSD, just like that. So that takes care of the data. Now we're just going to need to get power to it. So we're going to need a 6-pin to SATA. There you go, it's just a 6-pin to SATA. Really simple. Goes from the primary PSU to that hard drive. So it's only just a 6-pin, and there's multiple 6-pins there that is available. So no issue with that. Let's just plug you in. Again, just be mindful of where all the cable is going to go. And if you can put it into a place where it's going to be not really much of an inconvenience, then do it. It'll save you headaches down the future. Okay, so that's just plugged in. I'm just going to let it sit there for now. Again, cable manage as you go. So once you cable manage onto the actual rig itself. Now, normally I would screw the SSD into the frame, but I had to use some of those brackets at the front there. So I'm just going to let it sit here for now, just for the sake of getting the video done, and so you guys can see how it actually would work. But normally it would just be screwed into the actual frame here, just to keep it safe. We don't want the SSD to be going everywhere, but it's no biggie if it doesn't. We don't really move these frames all too much. Okay, so that's the SSD. So pretty much what we've got plugged into the motherboard, we've got your primary PSU power, RTX power, CPU power, and then your primary secondary plugged in from RTX power 2 into the RTX power PSU. Now just double, triple check that all the cables are all plugged in quite nicely, and they all seem to be. PSU's plugged in. Okay, great. All looking pretty good. Get rid of rubbish. Cable ties always come in handy. Don't need the bag. Okay, CPU's plugged in, core's plugged in, 8-pin power's plugged in, yep. Then we'll probably just short the pins on power, so your on and off is just there, but we can also install the power switcher as well. Don't need it, so we're probably just going to short the motherboard itself. But yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Next step, we want to we want to then now get a GPU out and connected. So since that one's going to be the primary, it'll probably make sense to put the GPU just here. That way we can keep cables in the right place, and we can troubleshoot if there is anything that we need required to do. And then yeah, so let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and open up one of the GPUs, and we'll go ahead and install that. Run obviously all the cables that is required for it, and then we'll give it a good test. So let's go ahead and we'll put you back over here, and then we'll go get the GPU up and running. Put you over here actually. All right. So the ones we're going with are the RTX 3080s from MSI. These ones are going to give us about 100 mega hashes per card. Really, really nice card. Really big cards, but we can accommodate. So let's go ahead and open up. If you get your hands on any one of these, then do it. We got them at a pretty good deal for $21.99 for the guys from BPC. So thanks for sending them over, and you got to us pretty quickly as well. As you can imagine, GPUs are pretty scarce these days, and unfortunately there's a lot of them are really ranking up the pricing as well. So just be careful of which GPUs that you want to get and what you'd like to get out of them. I like to be able to first check out what kind of build I would want to do, and what kind of mega hashes I would like to get in terms of a return on investment per day, per month, and then per year. But also what kind of coins I'd want to mine with it as well. That will give you a really good indication of what type of graphics card you would need. And once you can do that, then you can start working backwards from there. So what kind of motherboard you're going to need, what kind of power supplies you're going to need, and then all the other cables and things to go with it. So that is the 3080 PSU from MSI. So you can see it is a pretty big unit, and it's got quite a bit of heat sinks, quite a bit of fans, and as you can see at the back over here, it actually does have the 3 8-pins for power as well. So you have to really keep in mind when you are installing one of these or multiples of these, you actually map out what the power requirements are going to be. So let's go ahead and put you in just on the side over here as well. And it's a big card. So we'll go ahead and install you somewhere there. I'll screw it in and I'll bring you guys over so you can have a look. See what it actually looks like. So let's go screw in there. Just to keep it safe and secure. And there we go. Jeez, it's a big card. Okay, screwed in. We'll go ahead and have a look at what it looks like. That's the actual full GPU. You can see it's so big it even hangs all the way across that bar right to the front. So not a small graphics card, but she's a pretty good size, and she sits in there. So we'll have 8 of them all the way across out here. So you can see why we would need a sufficient amount of cable management. Alright, so that's plugged in quite well there. So let's go ahead and we'll start getting all the power supplies and things done for it as well. Probably will bring you guys a bit closer so you can see. How's that? There you go. Okay, great. Now, so what we know is that we're going to need 3 8-pin PCIe Express into the actual graphics card, and then we're going to need 1 to actually go into the riser itself as well. So we're going to need a couple of different things here at the moment. So let's go ahead. Let's get some of the risers out. So we'll get one riser. We'll get one of the PCI Express with the splitter on top of it as well. And then we'll also grab one of the PCIe Express plus 6+2 at the end as well. Now these are 300 watt gauge cables, so there should be sufficient amount of power that goes into the graphics card itself. So happy days. Let's go ahead and get your risers out. And your riser will basically look like so. It'll have a couple of options between your USB 6-pin, SATA and Molex plug as well. So it's good options to be able to have if you're running low on 6 pins. But if you have the space, ultimately always go 6-pin. It'll give you the most sufficient power to the riser itself and to the graphics card. So always go 6-pin where you can. So that's good. Next part we're going to plug out from here is the USB cable. It's also got the PCI Express hub that you will need to use to be able to go into the motherboard. So those cards will be able to go in there, which I'll show you how that works in a second. Let's just plug you in over here. What I probably should have done is get the PCIe in earlier, but that's okay, we can get that in now. You can do it at any stage that you feel comfortable with. We'll add them in just at the end once we've plugged in obviously the power cables and everything as well, and they just kind of clip in at some point there. So let's go ahead and get the power supplies and cables run to the graphics card. I'm going to go from primary PSU to the graphics card itself, which is right above it, so it's not very far. Let's go ahead and use some of the available slots down the bottom. So just so we can keep the cable management in order. So we'll go ahead and plug you into number 1. Actually, so we're going to run 2, so let's just go here, just to keep it simple and conform. So we know which power supply goes into which GPU. Alright, so we've got one. Now these ones are always going to be a bit tricky. So the configuration that goes is the first 8-pin that's closest to the HDMI connections or the front of the GPU is where the GPU draws most of the power from. So you kind of want to have the most stable power connector plugged into that front port. And then once it's in there, then we can start filtering out from top to bottom. So let's just go ahead and we'll plug you in. Make sure you hear the clip. Okay, so once that's clipped in, you can be pretty happy that it's going to sit quite nicely there. Then get the next ones in. Come on. Okay, there's a 6+2. And make sure you hear the clip. There you go, clip. It's better. Clips in. Great. So that only leaves us with one 8-pin left and a 6 that's going to be left for the riser. So let's go ahead and use these ones slightly longer. So unwind here. Okay, so 6-pin can go plugged into the riser. USB cable can also plug in as well, so we can have the riser nice and ready. So that's pretty easy to do there. And then we'll go ahead and get the second 8-pin that we want to plug into the PSU. Remember to keep them uniformed as well, so if you've got GPU 1 plugged into the top PSU 1, kind of keep it the same so that way if you need to troubleshoot later, you know where to find or which ones it's going to be connected to. Just to make it nice and easy for you. And then the last 8 pin plugs into the top. And then let's go ahead and get the riser plugged in. So make sure we have enough cable length to go all the way and plug that riser in. That looks like we're pretty good. Sure is getting tight. Okay, what I'll do for that one is a bit difficult because it's right on the PSU. So what I'm going to do is just disconnect the GPU, plug in the riser, then put it back. You'll see what I mean in a second. Just taking off the GPU there. Plug in the riser as well. We don't want to do that underneath. And there we go. I'll bring you over to have a look in a second. We'll just screw you back in. Oops. Great. So if you want to have a look here, we have the 8 pins all plugged in. So first 8 pin with a primary, secondary, and then secondary and third ready to go. And then you also have the PCI riser plugged in. You've got the USB there, and then you have, if you can see there as well, we have the 6 pin in the riser there. So all powered, ready to go. We'll get to cable management after we've done our first test. And once we've done that test, then we can start adding in obviously the rest of the GPUs, and then we can have a look at some arrangements of the power supply. Okay, so now next you want to get the USB riser, then you want to get these plugged into the actual motherboard itself. So they only go in obviously one way as well. You want to make sure that this little lip here is on the side where all of your USBs are going to be connected. Now you can see there, that first lip there before the first, that goes straight into that first notch on the side here, that one. So it just kind of just goes in like so, here, and then just give it a nice push. There you go. So it'll look like that. So you have that first lip that kind of hangs out on the side. Make sure you have it in that way. If you have it in the opposite way, you'll be sending a different current out to the GPUs, and you can probably damage or burn out the GPUs as well, which is not what we want to do. Especially when you got GPUs that look like this and cost obviously this much. You don't want to be bricking them. Alright, so that's all looking pretty good. So let's just double check everything as well. We've got all the power plugged in on the PSUs with a pretty crappy bracket, but we'll sort that. PSU ATX plugged into ATX1, ATX2 plugged into PSU primary 2. Got the SATA plugged in, and power cable for that too plugged into SATA 1. CPUs plugged in with no restraints to cable. Power safe CPU fans plugged in, and the full one graphics card is plugged in, and USB is plugged in there as well. Alright, so that's all looking really good. Let's go ahead, and then we probably want to start getting some of the monitor and keyboard and mouse plugged in as well. So I think it's going to be time that we can actually get. So we can turn the rig on, and actually see if we'll connect to HiveOS, boot up, and then we'll probably just run a test flight sheet on it, and see if it actually will mind. And then once we can get that one going, and then we'll add in all the other cards as we go, and cable manage as we go as well. And then the last bit, we'll add the fans and things onto it as well to make sure it's nice and cool. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the monitor, keyboard and mouse. I'll set it up over here. And then you guys can have a look at everything that's going to be there. Let's go put you guys in here. We're going to need, excuse me, you. All the power cables can go over here. Come here. Plug you in as well. So I'm just plugging in the power button in the event that we need it, but we're just going to short it anyway. So we shouldn't really need that. Anyway, so let's get plug you in and we'll grab a monitor. Good old trusty monitors and plug in here. So, and grab keyboard and mouse, so we can just set up the BIOS in the right way that we need it. And once it's set, we don't really need a monitor and keyboard and mouse at all after that. But just for this, we're just going to keep it plugged in so we can do troubleshooting. And once the rig is running, fully up and running, we won't need to really add anything after that. We can just have the rig on its own, and then we can remote view it or remote manage it from the HiveOS web GUI. Go and plug you in here as well. So we're just going to go HDMI to DVI plugged up there, that's fine. We will need power cables and a power board. So we've got power there. Always a good idea to have some type of power surge. So I got one of these balconies as well. Good thing about them as well, they come with a $20 million coverage. If your power board does fail, 50,000 equipment warranty failure. So if it does fail, Belkin will replace it as well. All of your equipment up to $50,000 will. So that's pretty good. So let's go plug you in. Alright, monitor's in, now we just need power cables. Power cable, just a standard ICE power cables, nothing special. Make sure all the power supplies are actually turned off. We don't need them on at the moment. We'll turn them all on a little bit later. Well, right now we only just need that one PSU on. Don't even need anything else. Just to make sure that it is up and running. We'll connect to the both primaries. Just to show you guys. Okay. So we've got HDMI connected for the monitor. We've got USB and keyboard and mouse plugged in via USB there. Got obviously the USB connector for the graphics card. Power supply 1 is connected into there. Power supply 2 is connected. Remember, we're not using those other slaves just yet because we don't have the other graphics cards on board as yet. But that one will be sufficient just to get the power to the motherboard, CPU, hard drive, and the graphics card itself. So it should be a really good opening test. And hopefully we don't have any issues. We're just going to log into the BIOS and make sure all of that is set up correctly. Then once it's all set, then we can probably go ahead and see if it will mine anything as well. So let's fire it up. Let's get the power board on. Let's get PSU turned on. Get the fan plugged in. And did the PSU turn on? Let's have a look. Power monitor's there. Go ahead and turn you on. Okay. Make sure secondary's on as well. Now, what did happen? It turned on there. Let's make sure this turns on here. Just gonna go ahead and put you down for a second. CPU fan. Interesting. Why did you turn on? There. PSU1, PSU2 off. Plug this in here. Let's go and troubleshoot. Why it didn't turn on. RTX power supplies out here. Double, triple checked. them up in. 24 pins connected. CPU fan, CPU 8. Are you all plugged in? Yes. Just going to do some troubleshooting. Just see what is going on. Okay. One pin plug in. 8 pin there. Power supply sorted. Don't need you. So let's go ahead and we'll just disconnect. We'll disconnect the graphics cards for now, just to see if the unit will actually power up first. Great, so that's just SATA, no graphics card, nothing connected. Okay, there we go. So we should be able to get some type of signal coming in. Power cables connected. Okay, let's wait for boot. Let's see what happens. Alright. So we're up and running here. We're just going to go in and just modify the BIOS to what we need it to actually do. So rig's up and running. No graphics cards connected or anything running at the moment. But let's go ahead and actually change some of the BIOS settings as well. So let's just go in. It shows obviously what CPU we got, what our RAM is. Everything is ticking off quite well, so that's good. Okay, let's go ahead and just go to CPU control, change out activity boost, yes. SATA and boot, want to make sure that SATA and boot's connected so it'll boot off that SSD. Pressing computer set, no, we don't change anything there. ASICs controls, PS2, we want to restore. I always like to have the restore AC power loss, so if the rig ever turns off due to power, and then once it returns back onto power, it automatically will turn on and just get back into mining as well. So that works out really, really well. So I like to have it, some people don't like to have it, but it's each to their own. Let's then go into hardware PCI subset settings. Here, 4G decoding. We want to make sure that we set that to enabled, which we did. USB configurations, latency USB, that's fine. 26 layers, that's fine. Network stack configurations disabled. Then we want to go mining mode, turned on. SATA. Okay, there you go, mining mode is enabled. Let's go into configuration. When I just go onboard, integrated graphics, FXD. So you just want to make sure that the graphics on the onboard motherboard are always running, so you can always get into Hive OS should you need. We want to go to the PCI 16 Express. It's set to auto, but let's change that to Gen 2. And once Gen 2 is sorted, let's go ahead and go change HD audio will disabled, ER control disabled. Okay, PCI 1, let's go and set all of them to Gen 2, Gen 2, Gen 2. Oops, Gen 2, Gen 2, Gen 2. Great, so that's all of them set to Gen 2 now. And then we can go, boot is set to Kingston SSD. Full screen logo, but yep, we don't need to do anything there. Memory clock and overvolts is all done. Let's go double check. System memory advanced. CPU, PCI subsettings, oops, one more. Is 4G is enabled, good. Chipset, mining modes enabled, system SAs is set to Gen 2. PCI configurations on PCI Express is all set to Gen 2. Gen 2 and Gen 2 and Gen 2, yes, good. Okay, that's all looking pretty good. I don't need to change anything else. You want to go save changes and reset. You want to make sure, yes we do. That should go ahead and turn off, and that should reboot on its own. Yep, there you go. So that rebooted. So now what we should see, one issue that we won't see is actually we need to get a network connection into the rig, and then once it starts booting up, will start jumping into the mining page as well. So once it starts doing that, we should start being able to see something register on Hive OS. And once it's registering there, then we can start doing some of the overclocks and then get into actual rig booted and run on the first graphics card. Let's go ahead and connect you. So we should get a link. Yep, there's a link that's running on it now. So you can see the network link is going. Connecting to the router. Hive OS is up. Looks like it's just doing some building at the moment. Only got just no flight sheets, no graphics cards, but does show. Doesn't actually show a LAN. So what we might do, we might just do a quick reboot. Just do a quick reboot so that way it can actually start up with a network connection. So there you go. So let's go. Hive should be up and running, so that should load on. And then, yep, there we go. So Hive starting to boot up. So that's already got Linux and Hive loaded all on board, as per that flash that we did earlier. So there we go. So we've got an IP address that registers now. It's going to start building the actual Hive OS itself. No logs on miner. So it looks like that's up at the moment. 21 seconds worth of up. So let's just go over and check out what's happening on the PSU. Sorry, the computer as well. So let's just go ahead and just do a quick refresh on that and see what happens. Let's go back to Hive. Or And great, look at that. So Thor is now up. It's got no flight sheets or anything at the moment, but it does show it's got the processor on board. It's an older Hive version, so we'll update that as well. No graphics cards or anything on that installed. So let's just go ahead and just go click update, force updates on both. Go ahead and update that. And then once that goes through, it's probably going to start doing some things on the actual rig itself. And it'll download the latest updates. There you go. So we've got updates that's coming through. Once we get all the updates and everything sorted, then we'll go ahead and do a full reboot. Just make sure that it boots up and is registered. And once it's done that, then we can go ahead and add in graphics cards, or at least a singular graphics card. And then there we go. So that should have just restarted. Yep, there you go. So restarting now. Back into Hive. And that should give us the latest version as well. Let's see which one it pops up on. Let's have a look. IP address Hive 206. Yep, great. So that's loaded up on the Hive unit. That's still showing that it's updating, so we'll let that run through. Okay, looks like that's up. Let's go ahead and refresh. Brilliant. Okay, so we're all up and running with the latest firmware at the moment as well. Doesn't have any GPUs or anything at the moment, but the beauty of it is we are running. So now you'll be able to see there should be Obsidian Fury, which is the 3070 mining over there, which is still going great, as you can see. And then we'll also go into it and have Thor. So Thor's going to be the 3080 rig as well. Fantastic. So let's just go into Thor. Whoops, go into Thor. We'll go shutdown. Confirm to shutdown. So that's going to do some thinking. And that should send over something here shortly, we hope. There you go. So she's now shut down. Shut down over here. Leave that to do its own thing. We'll go through when we'll turn off the power supply. And then now we want to go ahead and start adding in the GPUs. So we'll start with the first GPU. And then once we've got that one in, we can then go ahead and install all of the others. Excuse me. So we've already set the BIOS to be able to start accepting this GPU. So let's go ahead and plug her back in. So that goes into 8-pin PCIe. Okay, 1 PCIe and 2 PCIe. Okay, both PCIe's are connected now, so that's all power cables plugged in. Really not liking that bracket. Let's get USB cable plugged in as well. Oops, I'm going to go around this way. Okay, USB plugged in. Let's just double check cables. Okay, power cables are all in. USB riser is in. Actually, I might just remove that one to make it a bit better. Come here. That's better. Great. Okay, so that's now plugged in. All power cables are now connected. PCI is in. So let's go ahead and crank her on now, and let's see what happens. So as soon as I add in one, it just doesn't want to turn on. Why? Let's try one of these ones and see what that comes up as. Nope. Why not? That is a bit puzzling. Huh. Maybe what I'll try, some different cables. Hey, come on. Well, that's not getting any power. Okay, what I think has happened. Oops. Ow. Let's just go ahead and change you. Oops. Or this one. Thanks, Jeremy. Disconnect you. Let's disconnect you. Not easy to do. Let's take you out and let's go ahead and connect this. Thank you, 6-pin. Okay. That can go there. We need one of the 6 pins to go into the riser. Get the damn thing out. Come on. There we go. Great. Alright, so that's now plugged in. Let's go ahead and plug you in as well. Damn you, power supply. Okay, now let's try that. See if that does anything. Okay, that's much better. It was just that cable I was using, which is not fantastic. So we should be able to have, so we've got all the fans obviously running there as well. Let's go and see what actually pops up on. Doors come up with Start miner, UHD graphics card has been found. Hashing on roots, so we should be able to see what GPUs has come up now. Let's have a look. Let's give Thor a refresh. So booted a few seconds ago, but no other graphics cards showed up, so that's interesting. Alright, so what we'll do, let's just go ahead and shut down. Oops, come on. Shut down. Well, that's pretty obvious. I forgot to connect the USB. Fantastic. Good work. Well, good news. We did figure out that PSU issue for the power. So that's okay. So let's go ahead and connect that back up. So Thor is now off. Disconnect that. Don't forget the USB this time. Plug it in. Let's power Thor back on, and that's got graphics card that lights up. Gosh, it's a good looking graphics card. So nice. Okay, great. Now let's boot all up again. Building DAGs. Start it off. Okay, one GPU has shown up. That is good news. So let's go ahead and see if that 3080 shows up. Fantastic. Look at that. GeForce RTX 3080 is showing online at the moment. Let's go ahead and have a look at HiveOS. Give that a refresh. And look at that, GPU RTX 3080 is now online. So that's really good. Showing very much on the temperatures and details. I'm sure that's going to start coming through. So it's probably going to do all the downloads at the moment. So we'll go ahead and force downloads and just get the latest drivers up on the 3080. And then we can go ahead and add some of the flight sheets on there as well. So let's see so Obsidian is doing what right now? Obsidian is doing Cardano at the moment. So that's busy mining Cardano. So let's have a look. Minables on Cardano is there. What are we doing at the moment? So 20 coins at the moment on Cardano. So let's go through and let's have a look on Thor. And let's just go do 3080 graphics cards. Brilliant. So let's go to flight sheets. And let's go ahead and let's try Dogecoin out. But what I want to do is change the flight sheet. Let's just go duplicate. Doge Asia, Ravencoin. Here you go, Doge. And go edit, configure miner. Let's change you. Change Obsidian Fury to Thor, ETH hash, algorithm, Thor. Okay, apply changes. Enter name is Thor. Whoops. And update. Great, so that's going to go ahead and update. Let's go ahead and apply the flight sheet and hit apply. So that should go ahead and start applying that flight sheet to the HiveOS pool. HiveOS pool will then go to Thor itself, and then hopefully that should start downloading all of the graphics card details and the mining application as well. And once it's doing that, it's just showing it's configuring. Okay, so we got all configured over there. Let's just go into and give it a little bit. and see what happens. $23, so alright, so we're building up obviously the DAG there as well. So we just installed the NVIDIA drivers up and running. It looks like it's just adding in the mining software now. There you go, TRX miner has been added. Got the GPU online. Okay, authorization was successful. RTX 3080 online. So looks like the cards are spinning. Let's go ahead and do a refresh. And let's see what is, oh, it's pulling, look at that, 87.6 mega hashes at the moment. So that's a pretty good startup. Let's go ahead and just go add in some of the overclocks and auto adjust. Let's just go flash by BIOS and let's go 1100, memory clock at 2700, fan speed at 65, power limits 220, delay, I'm happy with that, save. So that should be able to apply those overclocks now. So let's see, so that should be able to update on the overclocks. There you go, 87.5 mega hashes as well off that 3080. Okay, POCs are going good. Let's go see what the overview is now showing. So some of that has been changed, 200 watts to 220, so it's been changed there a little bit. Let's give it another refresh. Nope, 79, oh, dropping down. 38 degrees, temperature on 4. Okay, so I'll have to have a bit of a play with those overclocks. So let's just go in there, 79. Change that. Let's go 2800. What does that give us? Save. And while we're doing that, let's go have a look at minor wallets. Let's go Dogecoin. Let's log into unminable. Change you to Dogecoin. I'll let that run. Okay, let's see what overview has happened here. Any adjustments? Let's have a look. Thor, okay, so it's dropping down on there. So let's go change those overclocks and change you to 2000. And let's see what that's going to come up with in terms of Doge. What are you doing? Come on. Oh, look at that. So Thor is online at the moment. Bit low on the mega hashes, but that's okay. Just want to make sure that she is online and working, so that's good. And let's go back into overclocks. 78, yeah, dropping down a bit. Overclocks, let's go and set you to 500 on 2000. Yeah, that's good. And let's see what happens. $86. Oh, look at that, getting better. On 2000, I'm happy with that. Let's see if this updates too. Given update. Unmineable unfortunately takes about a couple of minutes for it to actually update, so we'll let that go. As unmineable going, yeah. Obsidian is still going pretty strong there, 753. Let's just do another quick refresh. We're up to 86.58. Oh, look at that, dropped down quite a bit, 48.9. So nope, we don't want to go down there. let's go back to flight sheets. I think it was 1000. Did it update? Oh, yeah, updating. Meanwhile, let's have a look here and go RTX 380 overclock, mining settings, Hive OS. Okay, requirements that they're saying for. There you go. Absolute memory clock on -100, 2850, 230s for a hash rate of there. Okay, let's go ahead and try that. Where are you here? So what's Thor doing now at that fire? It's 85. Let's go ahead and overclock. Add in overclocks. What do they say? You want on? Oops. -100 recommended. 1080, 2000, 250. Okay, let's go try a few of those. Let's go -100 first. 2850. So -100, 2850. Power limits at 250. Save. Now let's see what it's going to come up with. Overview, and let's see what it comes up with. 86. Let's give it a refresh. Still 86. 250. What was it? Was that the power rating? 230, 28, -100, 102 meg hash. And that's on fastest hash rate on ETH hash. Yep. Okay, good. Give it another refresh. Wow, look at that, dropped down quite a bit to 63 now. Interesting. Hey, but just ring the bell. Just ring the bell. Yeah, good. Alright, we're down to 53 mega hashes now. So drop down a fair bit. 52 overclocks. Let's just change that to -200. So what you want to do is make sure you have all the overclocks set before you put in all the other graphics cards. And then that way all of the graphics cards would be able to take on those overclocks, and that way you're not pulling full power from those PSUs, especially if you got a lower PSUs, because then you can burn them out pretty quickly as well. 3080 micron 5. It's not liking that. Let's go back to the 1100. And what was it that this thing said? Absolute core clock. That looks pretty stable there. Let's try that. 1080. Let's run an overview. 88.62. That's looking pretty good there. So let's go ahead and just go back into overclocks. It's on 1080. Let's try that. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and start updating details. Go, 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 go. And once it's done that, once we get the overclocks all sorted on here, then that way, it'll still obviously need a fair bit of playing around here and there, but we're getting it pretty close to 90 at the moment, 88.58. That's on 1080, 2000. It's not too big. 88, 2250. And that is on Ethash as well. Mining pool. Yep. 88.12. Okay, so that's working. It's working. But it's not where we would need it. We need to get closer to that 100. So we'll have to have a bit more of a play around. Hash rates at 92. The cost of the power, in case you just said the clocks and approaches, the following method is going to be used to reach SH once again. The results obviously may vary, that's alright. Overclocking 38 mining test. Well, that's pretty good. Minus 200 is giving me that. 256, 200 conclusion. So I'll have to have a bit of play around with small increments as well. Well, that's okay. So, good news, she is up and running. He is up and running. And we are mining at the moment as well. Let's see if that updates. Yeah, so that gives us an update there as well. Door is there. Updating and mining, so that's always good. 88. So 88 mega hashes at the moment. But yeah, we'll keep working on that at the moment. So the biggest thing I wanted to get here was making sure that the power is all set. Let's go ahead and overclocks. And then we'll add in a few of them. So once we can start adding in some more of those GPU units, then we can adjust what the cores we would need to be and get it close to 1,000. Get it to 100 megahertz. Sorry, 100 mega hashes. And once it gets to 100 mega hashes, then that will give us a total of, up close to 800 mega hashes in total. So even at this moment here, close to 90 mega hashes at the moment. They're still going to be doing more than what Obsidian is going to be doing. So let's go have a look at the farms. So we should be able to see here, so we've got two farms, two rigs that's running at the moment. Obsidian Fury is the 12 GPU rig, 3070s. And as you can see, they're mining away quite nicely. And then we have Thor running as well. Then only at 80 at the moment, but I'll work on that one at the moment. But we can go ahead and add in all of the other GPUs now. Once we add in all the other GPUs, they'll be running at a maximum of 250 watts. That'll keep us pretty safe with the power supplies. And being safe there as well, having the overclocks ready to go, then it'll be good for us to make sure that the power supplies don't go over. But once you go over those power supplies, you can get into a bit of a worry if you're going to be sending too much power to the actual graphics cards itself. All the PSUs are going to be working too hard. You're just going to burn them out. So none of them is going to work very effectively. But I'm pretty happy. I'm happy with those results. We got the graphics cards obviously up and running. I'll work a bit more on the mega hashes. But for now, yeah, she looks like she's going all right. So let's go back over. You can see still working pretty well. There you go, still hashing away, which is good. 88.9 mega hashes, getting pretty close to that 90 mark. I'll keep tweaking that. We want to get closer as close as we can to the 100 is the ideal place. So next step is let's go ahead and we'll start adding in some more of the graphics cards. So we'll go ahead and shut you down. So let's go back to the rig, and best practice as well, always go into it, stop miner. Once the miner stops, then we can go ahead and shut it down. The temperatures are really low. I usually like to let it sit idle for a couple of minutes and really bring down that temperature. And then once that temperature goes down, then we can go ahead and shut it down. But it's only been running for a little while, so that's quite alright. Let's go ahead and shut down. We'll shut down that rig. And that's doing bits and pieces, so that should go ahead and shut down. Now, there, great. So that's turned off the rig altogether. And then now we can go ahead and add in some more of the GPUs, and then we can start looking at things like the cable managements as well. So that will come in handy. I'll put you guys back up over here so that we can get the build going. So let's go ahead and we'll start adding in multiples of the graphics cards, and then we change out those PSUs as well that was causing us the issues. So that could, yeah, definitely is one of them as well. But that's alright. We'll modify it as we go, and we'll make sure that we get them all up and running. So always good practice making sure you turn off the power supply as well. Get the power supply off. Sort of fix this thing and do that. And once you guys install that, you'll be mostly alright. We can get the rest of the brackets, the rest of the GPUs on, and just keep adding them as well. So you're pretty safe to get all of the GPUs on there as well, provided that you got the right power there and the right cables for it as well. Okay, so that's looking good. Alright. Great, so PSUs are off. Now we can go ahead and start adding in some more, but what I probably will do is I'll get some, probably adjust some of the power. I'll adjust just the power as well. Alright, just give it a nice clean up just around obviously all of the cables. So it'll be a bit more neater. Cable management is going to be key. So that will be good. We would need as many of these as we can get. All right. Okay, great. Once we got that in, we can go ahead and start adding the rest of them. So that can probably get away with like another GPU as well. So that's going to come in handy for something else. And just disconnect this. And plug that in. Sorry about that. So for you guys here. This can go down here. Plug it in here. Okay, so PSUs and everything will get back plugged in. And we'll go ahead and just get some cable ties here. I'll probably just band them together since they are on the same GPU. Like so. Okay, great. So that's looking much better now on the cable management. And we'll just tuck you in over here. We won't need you anytime soon. So we'll just leave you there. Great, I'm happy with that. Now let's go ahead and get the others on board as well. Yeah, power supply is going to still sit nicely there. And we'll go ahead and got 2 more-ish or so we can plug in. What I'll do, I'll probably will just get the other 2 cables and get them ready. So let's go ahead and plug you in here. Okay, that's one. And 2. Come on. Great, so that's going to be now ready for the next graphics card. Then we'll need to get risers as well, so graphics cards, risers, and all of the above. Let's go ahead and crack her open. Okay, graphics card number 2. I'll just have you sitting right here for now. So this time what we'll do, we'll just go ahead and get some of these boxes out of the way. GPU1, GPU2, box can put over here. Then we'll get a riser out. So this one we've got a bit more, a little bit more room to play with. So we want to go ahead and get that number 1 power supply up and connected. And once we've got that one connected, then we can get all of the others. So I haven't even screwed you in either. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's get, there you go. Put in that PSU straight in. And then just getting it ready to have the 6 pin connected. Just makes it a lot easier when you're putting it obviously out onto the riser itself. You can do whichever way is obviously going to be easy for you. There's no real set way to do it, so don't stress too much. Let's grab you. Okay, riser in. and then USB cable in. So what did I do? This one was underneath, my bad. So let's just go and disconnect you for a second. I want those cables to come in from underneath. Great, so that keeps our USB, power cable, everything there where we would want it. And then we can get the risers on board, and let's just screw in that cable. So we'll just screw that in now. So we'll just screw that in, just into that frame here, till we find the holes right there. And you can see how tight it's actually going to get. So it's going to be interesting when we have all of the cards online. And that's okay. Really, we can do that. Yeah, that's probably better. Okay, GPU 2 now screwed in. Let's get the power plugged in. And there. Okay, so we already got power to the riser. Now we just need to get power to the card itself. Okay, 6 and 8, sorry, 6 plus 2, 6 plus 2 pin straight into the top. Okay, that's 1. And then 6 plus 2 right here. Not the most easiest to put in, but a bit of fiddle, a bit of back and forth, and you'll get it. There you go. That's 2. And then we just need the one more. The 6 plus 2, so that's just going to go here, like so. It's a pretty tight cable. I don't like to have it that tight. But that's what's required, so let's just go ahead and do that. Great. Okay, graphics card 2 is in. Now we'll just fix up the cables. so. Cable ties are your friend. Great. And once that's done, then we can add in the other two on that side, and that would be the max on those 2 PSUs. Great. Okay, screwed in. Power. Making sure that that's plugged in on the PSUs, 1 and 2, good. And then, and like last time, let's make sure that we don't forget the USB. Plug in. Nice. I'll cable manage those once we get all of them in. Once they're all into those places, then we can actually tie up all those cables. So that's all fine. And I do need to make sure that all the cables would run kind of up center here. Kind of this way is where we would need it. But for now, that's okay. Good. Okay, then next we'll get the other 2. And I should take care of these 2 just here. So get the other 2, put those 2 on there, and they're going to run off the other 1200 watt. And then we'll do the last 2 for the center, so we'll keep moving through that way. So normally I would have just gone the other 2 here onto that PSU, but I don't actually have that cable, so I'll save that till a bit later. But we'll get the other 2 on here. So for today, we'll have the 4 3080s on board. Let's go ahead and put you back over here, and we'll get more on that rig. Okay, opening up 2 more. Empty boxes can go in here. I'll actually keep these boxes in the event I want to change it or sell the graphics cards later. That will come in handy. One more out. That should be us and done for the day. Get to some trouble. I'm okay. Okay. Alright, Okay, so the other two are there ready to go. And so we just need to get all the correct equipment to install. Get rid of rubbish. So we don't have to worry about PSUs, cables, and tags. Okay, good. So let's just put one over here. Let's get rid of these. That can go over there. And then, so what do we need? We need riser, 2 sets of PSU cables, and then we would need splitters on there as well. Okay, let's go ahead. Get that sorted. PSU, so PCIe, we'll plug you into there. Those brackets are so much better. Goes into one, and then let's get the other one. Another one, connect into here. Great, and then we get splitter. Splitter cable. That will take care of two. Do for the riser. Okay, great. And we would need another riser. Checking the risers as well. Get rid of rubbish. Riser can go on. Like so, it just kind of just connects into it, make sure it's nice and firm. Just going to put you back here for a second. And USB and 6 is going to go in just after. So let's go ahead and put USB in, like so. Okay, in. And then one of these, 46. Plug in here. Like so. Now we want to keep all the cables away from the fan, so we're going to keep them all on the right side. That way we can keep all of the airflow in the right direction. Okay, so that one will go in over here. Chuck this cable up over here. Okay, great. So master cable will go in first. No, I haven't even screwed in. Let's screw in the power supply. Yeah, so the GPU. Let's get that screwed in, just to be safe, and we know it won't be going anywhere then. Let's go here. Great. Now that she's screwed in, make sure power is off. Good, good. Let's go ahead and connect the main power. Let's plug in here. Make sure it's in nice and tight. That's going to go in one over my leg. Push her in so it's nice and tight. Clean up quick. So you know you're good. And just the last one. Back you go in here, like that. Great. That's looking pretty good. Now let's get some cable management in there. Just making sure that it is as neat and as good as we can get. Okay. There you go. GPU 3 is in. Some more cable management just to make sure it is good and safe. Great. Okay, so next card. A pin. One. Another. Fantastic. Now, just need another riser. Riser cable. Rubbish. Casing. Oh. Rubbish. One of the C. So 6 plus 2, we'll break it down just to 6. So one end obviously goes into the riser. It's not there. Let's go ahead and connect you here. It's connected. Plug in the USB while we're at it. Get that back onto the card. And let's screw her in for safety just before we plug it over. All right. Okay, screwed in. Now let's just get the final cables in. Plug in the USB. That's cable friendly. Yep, good. Okay, master cable first. Note. There we go, so that just pops in. Wait till you hear the click. Once you've got the click, you're all good. And then do the rest. Right now, just the last 8 pin into the GPU, and that would be it. And we'll fire it up, then we'll see how it actually will work. Hopefully all GPUs will come online, and we'll be happy days. Then I'll install all the others in another video, but let's just get the rig up. And mining. Voila. Alright, it's looking good. Let's get these cables managed. On there. Just keeping the cables as close to the card as I can, just for airflow, as well as all the other GPUs that's going to be coming in there as well. So let's just have a look. We've got the 3080s, all of them power cabled up, plus the risers are already installed. Just going to just double check that they're all plugged in before we turn them all on. Cables are in, risers in, power cables there. Okay, USB, and USB all in. Power cable. Everything's plugged in on the PSU. Yep, good. Okay, I think we're good to turn it back on for another round. Get rid of some rubbish. Plenty of cable. Alright, let's get secondary power on. Main power on. And we've got power to all of the graphics cards, which is a great sign. She turned on as well. Fans are running on all. Great. Now let's see if we get 4 GPUs on the rig. Let's move these damn cables out of the way. 4 GPUs. Look at that. Okay, great. IP address is registered. Keep booting. So it's probably going to go through and download all the drivers. There you go. 4 graphics cards of the 3080s, all online. And we're just going to go ahead. Yeah, it's going to start downloading all of the drivers for it, and probably going to kickstart on mining as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll do an update on Hive and just see where all of them are actually going to be running. So they're all fans are going, which is good. It's reasonably quiet as well. Let's go ahead and just give it an update. Great, so all cards are now registered. 3080, there's 4 of them obviously sitting in there. All the overclocks are in place. 1080, around 200 watts per card. That's where it's sitting at the moment. Let's just go over to another overview. Let's see on the pool. Thor, what are you doing? Yeah, we've got one already at 91 mega hashes. So yeah, we're about 50 short. So we're already 350 mega hash at the moment. And we need to get a little bit more. Get 84 on there for one on that first card. So we'll just let them run for a bit and see what the mega hashes do. Start changing up a bit. So 91 already at the moment, which is great. 90 is another good one. So we'll have to have obviously a bit of a play around and see where they sit on there. So that's okay. But the good news is it's up, it's mining, all the cards are registering. So that's really good news. We'll have to play with the actual hash rates. Let's have a look on here. Is Thor still popping up? Let's give it a refresh. Ooh, no workers yet. We'll let that mine. Obsidian, how's Obsidian doing? Yep, so that's still good. 753 mega hashes. Working away. Let's change you. Let's just have a quick look. So Obsidian Theory and Thor. Obsidian Fury, sorry, what did I say? Yep, still mining away, getting 753 mega hashes, so that's good. Look at those temperatures, great temps. And quite good on the power as well. You're mining Cardano at the moment, great. Let that go through. And let's have a look back on Thor. 352 mega hashes, yeah, so let's work on that. Overclock, so we've got a 2, let's just try 2020. Small increments, and let's just see if it does anything. So that will obviously take a little bit of time just to play around on the memory clocks, just to get it as close to that 100 mega hashes as we can. And then, yeah, we'll let it go. Okay, updated. Let's see where Thor sits. 89. Oh, I dropped down a little bit there on some of them. 352 mega hashes. One went up, 91.43. 89, 89, 89, 84. So yeah, we've got to really get these 84s up closer to that 90 mark. Would be good. And then yeah, we'll have a play a bit more on those overclocks. But I'll do that and to give more of a cleanup on the actual overshoots. But in summary, everything's working pretty well. We've got all of the 3080s. Well, 4 of them are running at the moment. The others I'll chuck online a bit later. We've got it Hive OS running on both Thor and Obsidian Fury on the 12 3070 rigs. So that's going really well, 758 mega hashes. And then we've got the 3080s, which is obviously coming online at the moment. Really not much heat coming out of them, and yeah, really quiet as well. I'm quite surprised about that. A little bit of heat there, no, not too much. No, it's pretty good. But the whole build is running pretty well. There you go, so that she's mining at the moment. Currently it's 352 mega hashes. Should be closer to 400, but I'll adjust those as we go. But that's the rig all together. We just got those other 4 graphics cards which we'll put in as well. Once we get those other PSUs up, I'll fix that damn bracket too, and we should be pretty good. So that's pretty much the conclusion on this video. I'll give you guys an update on how this rig's going to go in the coming days when I get those extra bits and pieces that will come in. But I'll probably just give it a bit of a tidy up, add in some of the fans and things, and then we'll be good to go. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed. Hope you learned something as well. If you got any more comments or anything, feel free to hit me up. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have, or if you're just wondering or curious in general, let me know what's happening. Thanks guys, have a good one. Take care.